but that vulnerability is where the story is. Vulnerability. What does it mean for me, and what does it mean for you as a photographer? Ace here, it is so nice for you to join me again. It is getting so close to the end of 2023, and it's certainly been a massive year for me. I want to have a chat about vulnerability today and what that means with street photography. But before that, the adventure that you're seeing that's playing out in front of you or on your screen when you're not seeing my mug is a lovely morning I had at Southport on Queensland's Gold Coast. So it was a beautiful morning. The sky was just popping. The ocean was so clean and clear. It was so lovely. There was no surf to speak of. It's a surfing beach, but there's no real, when you see people surfing through this, but it was just full of life. It's an off-leash park. I've been there heaps of times before. If you've been watching my videos, you would have seen it. You would have seen, you've seen me go here. I've been here lots and I love it. I love it more and more every time I go here, so you'll enjoy that. With street photography, I would hazard a guess that most photographers and street photographers are men. Certainly some fantastic women ones around, lady ones, whatever you want to say, however you want to identify, but predominantly it's guys that I've run into. There's some notable exceptions. There's some fantastic women street photographers, but by and large, it's guys. And vulnerability as a whole, I think, is something that guys don't talk about. I certainly don't talk about it, but it's always there. And the reason why I bring this up is photography for me, and certainly street photography, but I think it could probably relate to almost every element of photography, is about connecting with the scene, connecting with the landscape that I'm in, connecting with a street scene I'm in, or people that I'm photographing, or animals, or the vibe or the energy of the place that I'm in. Vulnerability is understanding the energy and understanding that I need to be as close as I possibly can to this scene to capture that. There is a quote that I'm going to misattribute and I'm going to misquote, so please forgive me. But it says something along the lines of, if your photos aren't good enough, you're not close enough. And that resonates with me. I know close-up photography, 35 or 27 or 28 mil photography isn't for everyone, and I get that and I respect that's, everyone's different journey. But for me, I like to be close to subjects. I like to be really close. And that's vulnerable. It's vulnerable in a physical sense of the word. If someone doesn't want me in their space, they don't need to have me in their space. They can, bop me or, get cranky at me. If anyone's seen our mini Trevor Weisskopf, he's a New York photographer, he gets in people's grills. And sometimes they arc up. There's a real physical vulnerability, and he manages to New York his way out of that situation. But that could be with anything. If you're asking someone for their photo, or you're doing candid photos, and someone says, "What are you doing?" There's a vulnerability there. So that's the the physical vulnerability, and I think that's probably why it's not. It's probably why I think a lot of ladies don't want to do street photography, especially close up, just because of the power differential, you might say. I've heard some people argue, and I think it probably falsely, that women find it easy to do street photography because people like women. I think those fears are still there, and I think I don't think that's a true representation of what happens in the world. Guys and girls have different strengths, and different vulnerabilities. So I don't think it's a male versus female thing there. So there's that physical vulnerability. That emotional vulnerability, I think, is bigger. I think it's a bigger thing, because when we're approaching someone or something for a photo, we're putting our energy out there. We're saying, I've seen you. If it's a person, if it's a subject, I've seen you in this situation. You've elicited some kind of reaction in my mind, in my head, as a compositionally, and you're putting that out there. You're pointing your camera at this person or these people or this scene, and you are trying to capture that. And I think that's extremely vulnerable. Vulnerable for you putting it out there, but vulnerable for your subject, that someone has seen them. Someone in the street, a stranger, complete stranger, have got a camera hanging around their neck. If you're like me, a little XT1 normally, hanging up, sometimes with a GoPro on the top, which is this isn't an imposing camera, but someone putting a camera in their way. And that can be a real vulnerable moment for the person you're photographing. And that vulnerability can come out in a lot of different ways. I think it's important to really accept and acknowledge those emotions in yourself and in others. I am fairly comfortable being rejected. If I ask someone for their photo and they say no, it doesn't particularly worry me anymore. If I try and do a candid shot and someone turns away, it doesn't particularly worry me anymore. But when someone says yes, and they're happy to do my photo or they pose, that's actually much more threatening, because I need to think in an instant, how do I engage this person? How do I pose them or sit them right or get them to smile or not smile or look? There's a two-way vulnerability. This person is giving me permission to be in their space, giving me permission to maybe manipulate their body or tell them to present an emotion that maybe isn't natural for them, smiling or frowning or pensive or anything like that. So that exchange of emotion is really vulnerable, and that can be really scary. And I think that's something that I'm struggling with, is the wrong word, but that vulnerability is where the story is. That's the key for me. If I can get a dog, you'll see there's a picture of here, a dog shaking its head. It's completely candid. The photo's a little bit blurry, but it tells a story. This dog is having the time of its life on the beach. I mean, there's quite a few dogs in this, all having the time of their life on the beach. People playing with their dogs, just relaxed. But I'm photographing them in that space. They're at the beach there with their dog. They're throwing a stick or a ball or something like that, and I'm in their grill and I'm photographing them with these creatures that they love and adore, and taking the time out in the morning to enjoy that time with them. But that's where the story is. That's the gold for me. That vulnerability, that candid moment, or that connection where you're able to engage that person and get them to sit or stand or pose or look or portray an emotion that might not necessarily be natural for them. That is the nugget. And when that dual exchange of vulnerabilities happens, I think that's the magic. I think that's the nucleus. Now, I might be talking completely out of my backside. I don't know. That's where I'm at the moment. I don't know if it's something that anyone else has thought about, either implicitly or explicitly. That vulnerability and that exchange of emotions, that exchange of trust. But if you are a photographer, and I know most people watching this channel are photographers, and that has resonated with you, I'd love to know. I'd love to know if it's something that you've thought about, if I've maybe been able to articulate in words what you've thought about subconsciously, or if I'm totally off the planet. If I'm off my chops, you can tell me. I'm absolutely not going to be offended at all. I'm being vulnerable in this situation, telling you about being vulnerable. So I really invite that feedback, and I always do with my videos. So vulnerability, let me know your thoughts, crew. I have loved this journey this year. Some exciting things are happening next year. I think 2024, I'm going to surge ahead with creativity, and I know you guys are too. So there might be 1 or 2 more videos this year. I'm not too sure. As always, crew, it's been a pleasure you joining me. Love God, love others, and take time to listen.